Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversation with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in this incredibly important mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show, letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. Fantastic show lined up for you today. First up, Rachel, Renee, and Nikki Russell return to Reading with Your Kids to celebrate Dork Diaries, book number 16, Tales from a Not So Bratty Sister. And later in the show, Jordan Hayes will be here to celebrate her new children's book. It's called The Magic Pen. Are you looking for the perfect gift for a young reader? Woofy and the Dinosaur Dig Adventure, the second book in the Woofy series, is an exciting choice that fosters creativity, friendship, and teamwork. Join Woofy, a small gray stuffed dog, on his thrilling quest to help his friends excavate a T-Rex in the mountains. Young readers will enjoy his humorous adventures and admire his skills as a pup paleontologist, all set in a beautifully illustrated lyrical story. Authored by Helen Rogenson, retired award-winning teacher honored with the Presidential Award for Excellence in Math and Science Teaching. This book encourages lifelong learning while supporting charities for animal rescues and children in need. Don't miss out. Visit us at unpackyourownhappy.com and connect with us on Instagram at unpackyourownhappy. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by 28 Days of Neon by Mayera Rosenberg. 12-year-old Neon Blue-Green is queen of the cafeteria, co-captain of the cheerleading squad, and has the most amazing dog any 7th grader could ask for. Her only complaint in life is that her parents named her after the color of a sports energy drink. Until the morning she overhears them whispering and learns that she has only 28 days left to live. Neon needs a miracle, but how can she get one in only 28 days? Then it hits her. She'll do one good deed every day. This is a fascinating middle grade novel that you and your kids are going to love to read or co-read together. Get your copy today, 28 Days of Neon by Mayera Rosenberg. This episode is brought to you by Feliz Navidad. It's December of 2019, and Pittsburgh is covered in a terrible fog. Even worse, all of the reindeer get sick and they can't fly. Everyone in the North Pole is worried they'll have to cancel Christmas. But just when all hope seems lost, Santa's pet, Feliz Navidad, raises his paw to help. And while a dog is not quite a reindeer, Feliz is their last chance to save Christmas. This is a book about perseverance and grit. Feliz Navidad, the story of how Santa's dog saved Christmas. Get your copy today. Feliz Navidad by Ari and Rhea Helper. My friends, I am so excited to welcome back our guest today. Coming to us, celebrating book 16 in the Dork Diaries series. Please welcome back to the show, Rachel, Renee, and Nikki Russell. My friends, how are you?
Happy to be here.
Happy to be here.
Rachel, I'm so excited. I just returned from a tour of Scotland and Ireland.
Wow.
While I was over there, one of the towns that we visited was Killarney in Ireland, and I went into a bookshop and said, I need to go to the back of the bookshop to see if any of the guests of the show have their book here in Ireland. And sure enough, Dork Diaries was there.
Yay! Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Was it in English or their language?
It was in English, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how many books are published in Gaelic these days.
Yes,
I do know
exactly.
that there is a push to bring the language back. How does it, Rachel? How does it feel to know that your books are out all across the world in different languages?
It's a like kind of mind blowing. The last time we checked, we were in 52 countries and 45 languages. So it's like, and again, I took Spanish in high school and college and can barely master that. So to think of the books being in 45 languages is it's just mind blowing. It is. And even hearing your story that it's in a store in Ireland is even just wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Nikki? How does it feel to know that your illustrations are being seen by kids all around the world?
I am so excited and I am so happy. I was always hoping I had a talent to offer the world that would reach many people and inspire them to be their adorkable selves. So I'm over the moon about this.
Adorkable selves. I love that. I love that. And I should also mention, through the magic of technology, I am getting to see Rachel and Nikki together, and they are both rocking a great Dork Diary tie-dye hoodie.
Yes, and it matches our Dork Diaries book 16 book cover.
Yeah.
So it came out really, really nice. We were so happy. And then when we do our book signings, a lot of fans and even parents, moms and dads and our older fans are begging us to put them on the market because a lot of people were interested in.
Well, I was going to ask that. Is it available as merch yet?
Not yet, but we're working on it. It would be nice to have it before Christmas. So, and then actually I should give my manager and / sister credit because usually whatever, as you can see, our books are behind us and whatever color the cover is, we try to, dress up, be it in jeans and a sweater or business casual to match our covers. And we were thinking, were we going to do pink or yellow? And she's like, don't pick out an outfit. I have a surprise. And sure enough, she showed up like 2 days before we started our tour with these. And so we have to credit her with the genius of coming up with this. And plus it's casual and it's warm and it's just wonderful.
That's great. Well, we should know what the story in book 16 is all about. It's called Tales from a Not So Bratty Sister.
Yeah, that is correct. Well, as you are probably aware, Nikki is obsessed with writing in her diary. Like she pours her heart into it. But it also contains a lot of secrets and things she wouldn't want anyone to read or know about. So Brianna has been watching her and decides that she wants to be like her big sister Nikki and write in her own diary. The only problem is Brianna doesn't have her own diary. So she gets her hands on Nikki's diary and decides to change the cover so that when she's walking around with it, no one knows that it's actually Nikki's real diary. And since Brianna loves painting, she does a splatter paint design, and that's what we're seeing here and on the cover. In the actual book, Brianna puts on her little paint apron and takes a piece of paper and does her very similar design, and she takes that and covers Nikki's denim jean diary. So now when she's walking around with it, no one knows what it is. So for a few days, Brianna actually has Nikki's diary and she's writing in it and talking about her feelings and what she thinks of being a little sister, what she thinks of Nikki and Nikki's crush and her friends. And it's just wonderful and refreshing to see a brand new perspective from Nikki's bratty little sister, Brianna.
Now, Nikki, how is any of this biographical at all? This based on some sibling rivalry?
So ironically, yes, when I was Brianna's age, I was very hyperactive, and there was actually an occasion where I drew all over the walls with permanent Sharpie marker. But I have since learned to keep my artwork contained on paper, which is good news. And I had an older sister that I very much aspired to be like and really looked up to. It was very much IRL in real life.
Exactly. And then to this day, Nikki still journals even as an adult. So when she was little, if she had a choice between a Barbie doll and a spiral notebook from the grocery store that you could get for like 99 cents back then, she would rather have the spiral notebook paper because she could, again, doodle and draw and make up stories and whatever. She still loved Barbies too, but if I had to give her a choice between the Barbie and the notebook, spiral notebook, she would pick the spiral notebook because it was just a creative outlet for her. And to this day, want to tell them about how you still journal?
Yes, so I still journal on a regular basis. It's just so cathartic for me. And I also like to draw. I like to doodle like Nikki Maxwell does.
You know, it's interesting you shared with us that you drew all over the walls in the house with the Sharpie. I had a guest on, an illustrator from Italy, and I said, how did your parents support your creativity in your art? And she said, they gave me permission to draw and paint on the walls of my bedroom.
Yes, that is a phenomenal thing. And maybe more parents should do that too, because with Nikki, she mostly did it whenever the room was freshly painted. So when it was like old paint and, you know, little scrapes and scratches and other artwork that we, you know, technically cleaned off the wall with Mr. Clean or whatever, she kind of lost interest. But when it was a brand new, freshly painted room, then she was really motivated to get creative. So, but I love that idea. Maybe more parents should do that.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine, Nikki, you just liked having a fresh, clean.
I did. There was just something about it that shouted, draw on me. It just looked so clean and fresh. It needed something.
Exactly.
Renee, how are you, Rachel, how are you finding stories to continue to tell? 16 books are out there. Are you ever at a loss of what to create next, or are you just filled with stories from Nikki's past or imaginative stories?
Usually we draw from our own personal experiences. So based on that, there's a lot that we can still draw from. We also take a look at what's going on and with culture for our demographic is like 8 to 14-year-olds. So we kind of look at what's going on and what kids like. We have put in some pop culture things. Like we put in a couple of games. And
we put in some popular video games. We've put in social media.
Yeah, definitely that. And we're using the real names too. So I think we do say TikTok and YouTube in that. And a lot of other authors kind of cringe at that because they think, well, if you say TikTok or YouTube, what if in, 2 years there is no TikTok or a YouTube? Kind of like MySpace or what, stuff that's here and gone. But the wonderful thing about Dork Diaries is that our sales are brisk enough that we get reprinted every couple years. Like all the books in back of us usually go through. The older ones are in slower reprint now, but if there's a change we want to make, and sometimes there are typographical errors or something that, got past us, when it's reprinted, we can make minor changes. So I figure that's the time we can pull out, anything that's.
I have something ironic to point out. Many of the books that are still popular on the shelves today take a look back at times past because the author wanted to reflect what life was like when they were kids. And that's still popular with kids today. So the same thing goes with our books and how they have reflected pop culture from years back. So we, not only that, we also try to infuse our books with what's new. And I think all of that makes it a very lovable series.
Yeah, yeah.
You relate too, because like I said, we've even used pop stars' names. And then again, when the reprint comes up, they're like, okay, we're going to be reprinting in 60 days. Is there any changes you want to make? And we're like, okay, let's get rid of this person or that person's married with 3 kids now. Like we had Jonas? Yeah, we had the Jonas brothers in there. And like, so they're all, married with kids now. So we took them out probably maybe 5-7 years ago. But again, the beauty of Dork Diaries is that when we get reprinted, our editors allow us to make very minor changes. So we'll pull out a name. We can't like rewrite the whole chapter or rewrite the whole page, but we can pull out a sentence and replace it with something or, or we may pull out a name that's popular, like Justin Bieber, and then just replace it with, Corey Hamilton, we'll just make up a name of a pop star. Since again, he's married with a child now too. So.
I'm curious, have any of the stars that you've included in the Dork Diaries reached out and had a reaction?
Not really, but we did hear from Godiva Chocolates, right? Yes, we have, in Dork Diaries book 1, we have Mackenzie, laying in the bed, writing in her diary. And I think we mentioned Godiva Chocolates, and they sent us this humongous gift basket with just stacked with all these luscious, wonderful, expensive chocolates. And Nikki's into dark chocolates. They even had dark chocolates for her. And they said, thank you for adding Godiva Chocolates into your dorky world. And we're like, oh, okay. So, you know, we don't do that to, you know, solicit brands sending us free stuff, but it was nice, you know, that time. But Nikki and I are super Godiva fans anyway. So whenever we're at our mall, we, you know, buy Godiva. So that's why we ended up including it. But that's the only person. Anybody else? Oh, Nikki does a Snoopy happy dance. And do you remember Charlie Brown and Peanuts?
Absolutely.
And Snoopy has this thing where he puts his nose up in the air and he does a dance and his feet are going. We actually had Nikki do a Snoopy happy dance. Not only in book 1, she does it like probably in every other book. So she's probably done it maybe 12 times, 18 times. So one morning I have an email and it was Charles Schultz's state. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Because we actually show her doing it too, but it was homage to them. And it was the daughter, and it was the daughter of Charles Schultz, and her daughter were having breakfast one morning, and the daughter was reading the book, and the granddaughter, or the younger, I think there was like a 12-year-old and a mom. And again, I don't know exactly, but I think it was, I don't know, daughter, granddaughter of the Charles Schultz. And they said that the child lost it at breakfast and was so happy because her, I think, grandfather, I don't remember all the details, was Charles Schultz, and Nikki Maxwell was doing a Snoopy happy dance. And then the mother actually wrote me saying they had a wonderful morning because the daughter had stumbled up, this 12-year-old or whatever, had stumbled across her grandfather's Snoopy happy dance, and Nikki was doing a Snoopy happy dance. So I'm like, thank goodness it wasn't a cease and desist or we're going to sue you. It was her saying it made their day and it was so wonderful. And she thanked Nikki and I for keeping, you know, Peanuts alive in the, you know, in our dorky world. So those were the two people, Godiva and then a relative. And I think it was daughter or maybe granddaughter and their minor child from the Charles Schultz family.
That's wonderful.
Anybody else you can think of?
We heard from here. If I can think of something.
Yeah, I think those were the two most exciting ones, Godiva. And again, I love Charles Schultz. And we do have Nikki. When Nikki's really happy, she does what she calls her Snoopy happy dance, where she puts her head up and she just dances around, much like the cartoon.
I'm wondering, Nikki, one of the things I love talking about the process, because people's creative process. And I had an illustrator of a graphic novel series. I actually had two of them in the same week. And the first artist came on and she said, I made these illustrations really simple because I knew I was going to have to do about 1,000 of them. So I wanted to make it really, really simple. And then the next illustrator that came on that week was saying, this is so frustrating. This graphic novel is about ancient Greece, and there's so many little details I have to put into each illustration, and it's driving me crazy. I'm curious, have you simplified your illustrations at all in Dork Diaries, or have they become more detailed and richer as they go along?
I would say they've become more detailed and richer as they go along. In fact, we have plans of not just doodling in ink, but transforming everything into, should I tell him?
Yeah.
Into full color.
Wow.
We're going to be going full color soon, and we are really excited about that. But if you look really closely from book 1 all the way up until book 16, which is this one right here, you can notice that my style has become more detailed and refined. And I'm enjoying the process, and I get a lot of support from my mom, and we have a great team to keep it going strong.
Yeah. And was that a conscious decision for you, or was it just kind of like, oh, I'm getting better at this and look at how much more detail?
Probably a little bit of both. You know, I was realizing, I'm getting better at this. I have to keep it going because.
And then when I was seeing that, I had to take our storyline, and Nikki has to our main character, Nikki, has to consciously indicate that she is getting better and she is taking her art more seriously and she is also improving. Because initially we were stick figure, and it was kind of, the hands were kind of gloves. They kind of looked like this, and it was a black stick figure. And then by the time we got to what book? Looks like it's book 9. Book 9, we started slowly getting rid of the stick figure. Part of that is because graphic novels were starting to become more popular. And we knew, I think back then it was still black and white graphic novels, but we figured it was going to go to full color. And if we had black stick figure arms and legs, when we wanted to go full color, it was going to be a problem. So part of the development and the artwork getting more detailed and sophisticated is because we wanted to do full color. And with full color, you can't have like the stick figures and the, the little mitten gloves versus them having fingers. So that was kind of what we were thinking, probably as much as like 5-7 years ago.
Yeah. You mentioned fingers, and this just popped into my mind. Nikki, when you're creating the illustrations with the fingers, do they have 5 fingers or 4? Because like when I was watching cartoons when I was a kid, it was like, they only have 4 fingers. Like everyone.
Yes. Yeah, they definitely have 5. I've noticed the same thing. I wonder if maybe when we're dealing with cartoon animals, like if they're cartoon animal characters, they may just have 4 fingers because their thumb is technically the little paw that's right here. So I think that's what they do for like Mickey Mouse and other characters. I think that's where that's coming from.
Now, Rachel, I'm imagining the folks who were reading book number 1 when they were 8-10 years old are now probably in their 20s.
It's been 15 years. So if they started reading at 8, it's 15 years later. So they are now 23 years old. That is very good math.
Yeah. Thank you. Have you, made the stories more sophisticated to kind of keep those folks engaged in the series?
Our demographic is 8 to 14 years old and it's middle grade. So we've kind of kept it at that. There are things that our older fans are interested in, like they want Nikki and Brandon's relationship to develop, so we're kind of doing that a little bit more, but basically we're still middle grade. So we're going to keep it middle grade, though you have like Percy Jackson and Harry Potter, and both of those started out as middle grade, but as the characters aged, they ended up even going to college and, whatever. So we're not going to go as far as that, but we are, as Nikki ages, we will have Nikki do age appropriate things. Like Nikki's 15 now. And if we age her again at 16, then yes, she will do 15-year-old things and she'll do 16-year-old things. So we're taking a little bit slower, than some of our other, middle grade authors.
Yeah. You mentioned that you're going full color and we talked about animation. Any talks about bringing Dork Diaries to becoming an animated series?
Yes, what I'm really interested in is a theatrical release with live action, I guess they call it. If I have a choice between animation versus real actors or real girls in the 8 to 14-year-old demographic, I would prefer live action with real actors or actresses. So that's my first choice. But an animation sounds great too. But yeah, we're working on it, and we've had 2 movie options. The last one kind of got undermined with COVID, because again the whole movie industry shut down, and there was even worry if it would recover, and it is doing just fine now. But our option expired around the same time as Hollywood was still struggling, and I think at the time the only person making a movie was Tom Cruise was, doing his movie. And I think that was the only major movie in production back then. So again, our option with the studio that had our option kind of expired during that time, and it was still touch and go. We wanted a theatrical release, but again, because of the struggling and theaters not being open, a lot of things are going to streaming. And I'm not as interested in a streaming deal as I am. I want little girls to be able to go and see a movie with a character that looks like themselves in a movie with popcorn and the whole 9 yards versus it being at home and streaming or whatever.
Yeah. Nikki, I'm curious, and if we do get this live action theater release, who do you see playing Nikki?
Oh my goodness. That is such a great question. I am open-minded and eager to see what our producer and director would recommend. But I feel like this is really a question let me, before I defer to Mommy over here, I do want to say that for sure, I do see Nikki, Chloe, and Zoe being a diverse group of friends.
As they are in the book.
You want to explain that, Mommy?
Yes. Well, Nikki's white, Zoe is African American, and Chloe is Latina. So we definitely would like to see, again, and our whole cast of characters are very diverse. Again, you kind of don't see that because Nikki's just doodling, in her diary with a pen on white paper. So you're not necessarily seeing the diversity of the characters, but it is a very, very diverse world. And if we can get a live action or even an animation that's full color, it's going to be wonderful because we'll get to see, Dork Diaries in its fullness.
And the same thing for when our graphic novels start being produced in full color, you'll be able to see that beautiful array of diversity.
Yeah. I just performed for a group of kids in a little town in upstate New York, Montgomery, at Montgomery Elementary School. And it was and I was so surprised because it's so rural. The audience was just this beautiful rainbow of kids. And it was so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. So we want the Dork Diaries world to reflect the real world, which is an array of, people, so that's my goal.
That's great. Well, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Dork Diaries, Book 16, Tales from a Not So Bratty Sister, and find out more about both of you.
Exactly. And hold that. So yeah, our website is dorkdiaries.com, and we have lots of cool stuff on there. Nikki has her own blog post. Zoe and Chloe do a blog post together, and even Brandon has one. So it's basically Nikki and I, and we write as those characters. And that's, again, dorkdiaries.com. You can also order all the books there. We're on social media, and we have been on TikTok now for, I think, maybe a year or two. So you can check all social media. TikTok is particularly fun because Nikki has a phenomenal art studio that's pink. She doesn't draw on her walls, though, right? You could. That's a good idea if you want to draw on your walls. But it's pink, and it's just a lot of fun. And on TikTok, she actually she gives a tour of her Dork Diaries art studio. So we've been having a lot of fun, on social media as well. But again, social media, we're always at Dork Diaries.
Awesome.
Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Definitely TikTok.
Yeah. Well, that's really wonderful. And if you are in Killarney, Ireland, the book is available.
Yes, exactly.
So check that out. We've had a wonderful time speaking to the creators of Dork Diaries. Our guest has been Rachel Renee and Nikki Russell. My friends, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having
us, Jed.
Yeah, we always enjoy coming and speaking with you.
This episode is brought to you by the Logan series. 3 wonderful books written by Christine Ritchie McNamee. Logan and the Missing Masterpiece, Logan and the Lost Luggage, Logan and the Missing Jewels. Logan and the Lost Luggage is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. And all 3 of these books feature Logan, an adorable Cocker Spaniel who travels the world with his magic phone. You and your kids are going to love traveling around the world with Logan, meeting animals from all over the world, visiting different countries, and learning how to get along with people from other countries and other cultures. It's a beautiful series of books. Our Reading with Your Kids certified great read panel loved Logan and the Last Luggage. We know you're going to love all 3 books. Check it out today. The Logan series by Christine Ritchie McNamee. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Snoodles in Space, Episode 2, The Zoodles Strike Back, written by Stephen Joseph and illustrated by Andy Case. In this third installment of the Snoodle series, the Zoodles are determined to have their revenge. With the help of a grimy millionaire who's fallen on hard times, they intend to poison the Earth's water supply and turn everyone into willy-nillys and dilly-dallies. Can Brianna and Ricky save the Earth again? Will the outcast kids on the other side of the track rise to the challenge and help save the world? You can find out with Snoodles in Space, Episode 2, The Zoodles Strike Back. This episode is brought to you by OnceUponADance.com. Take storytelling to a whole new level. With Once Upon a Dance, your child will do more than just listen. They'll move, imagine, and connect. It's a literary adventure and a performance all in one. From graceful turns to energetic leaps, each story brings an immersive experience that engages both body and mind. Whether your child enjoys unicorns, bats, zombies, or cats, Once Upon a Dance has a Dance It Out story just for them. Celebrate joyful movement and visit OnceUponADance.com or find them at your favorite social media platform. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by the books by Charmaine Perry Knights. Charmaine is a TEDx speaker, award-winning facilitator, world traveler, and author. Serving military families through quality literature is her goal and her passion. Her books are absolutely amazing. They are just full of great messages. Books like I'll Find My Way, and That's Okay. I Move a Lot, and That's Okay. And It's Cool to Be Kind. Such great books that you and your kids will absolutely adore. These books deserve to be in your family library. Get them today. The books by Charmaine Perry Knights. They're available today at Amazon. Join us right now from the great state of Colorado. Our guest is here today to celebrate her children's book. It's called The Magic Pen. Please welcome to the show, Jordan Hayes. Hey, Jordan, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you.
I'm wonderful. I just want to acknowledge Jordan has been so patient. She was supposed to be on the podcast back in February of 23, and then I went and missed the step and ended up in a hospital for an awfully long time. So I really appreciate her patience and her persistence, and I'm excited to have you on, Jordan.
Well, thank you. No problem. No problem at all. Glad you're doing better.
You were telling me a little bit about The Magic Pen. This sounds like a fun book.
Yes, it's super fun. So I've had this idea. My husband and I went, we had the very fortunate privilege of going on a backpacking journey when we went on our honeymoon. So we went everywhere, but one of the things we did was go on a cruise, and there was a pen on this cruise. And I thought to myself, this pen has been so many different places. And I said to him, what would happen if this pen took you wherever the author would write it? And so 10 years go by. I had to create my characters, which is my daughter and my son. And then I kind of had the foundation for what the story would be. And so it rhymes. It's super fun. We feel like that's my husband and I just love books that rhyme. So they're really entertaining to read. So that was what my husband said that it should do. It was a good idea.
Yeah. Well, what a neat concept to just put that in your kid's head. Like, oh, this pen can take you anywhere in the world.
Yeah. It was a fun idea. And what's been really cool about it is that my friends will share stories about how their kids pretend like there's a magic pen that takes them places now. And they write their own stories about a magic pen. And so it just has so many different just facets that it can go into. And the rhyming, of course, is really good for phonemic awareness for like parents trying to teach their kids foundations about how to read. And so it just had it was really cool. It's such a privilege to see these kids take this story in different ways.
Yeah. And, from a business side, because we always want to stress to aspiring authors and independent authors, you started a business when you started writing this children's book, and The Magic Pen, it just lends itself to a series.
Yes, yeah. The Beginning is the name of it, as well, Magic Pen, The Beginning. And so I'm currently working on the second book, where they will go to Hawaii. So that's kind of our next step. But yeah, I loved that series, The Magic Tree House, and I loved how they're able to go to all sorts of different places. And so that's kind of what I was hoping to be able to do.
You, and when you first reached out to me, you were saying that you are, a reading coach. I'm not sure if that's your title.
Reading specialist, yeah, a coach, yep, yeah.
So you know all the benefits that kids and parents get when they read together. Can we talk about some of those benefits?
Oh, yes. So I love the idea that it's kind of science that when kids and their parents or caregiver, whoever's reading to them, are sitting side by side, they're sharing this moment where they create an attachment bond that's healthy. They're doing something together, and they're also learning vocabulary words. I think you've mentioned on your podcast before that it's like 1.4 million words if you read 5 books every day to your kids that they get by the time they turn 5. And it's just, you're giving your kids the gift of the superpower that reading is. The world opens up to you. It's an amazing thing to watch kids do that. So that's really a big part of having a book to present to parents, but also saying that reading to your kids and teaching them how to read through simply reading at night, every night, it's not as difficult as one would think. You don't need a master's in reading. You just need to sit and read, and you're doing so much for your child. Right. So yeah.
Yeah. It's, the bonding is why I launched Reading with Your Kids. And I learned over the past 7 years all the other benefits, the vocabulary and kids that read and kids who are read to end up making more money in their jobs, which is like, I love that. I don't know how it works, but that's great. But it's the bond, my kids are now adults and we have great relationships with them and their spouses. And I know it was all built on that foundation of reading.
Oh, definitely. And we see that my son's in kindergarten now, and he uses these incredible words that I'm like, where did that come from? Like, how are you saying that word? And how are you using it in context? But we've been reading 2 books a night since he was a baby. And I think that, sometimes it can happen where you get a bunch of books at your baby shower and then you maybe don't remember to update your library or go to the library and get different books. But constantly there's so many words that you're talking about when you're looking at even a book that has no words, talking about the pictures. And you can do that with a baby. Even with my daughter, she talks. She has an expansive vocabulary, and she's doing wonderful with reading. And I remember sitting with her as an infant and just reading the book that I was reading out loud. And these are simple tasks that you can do as a parent that help create that bond, a love for reading, and also just giving them a leg up on kindergarten.
Yeah. So important. One of the things that I've learned, and it's kind of recently, is that in our education system here, you learn to read up until 2nd grade.
Yeah.
3rd grade, you're reading to learn. If your kid's not reading on grade level at the end of 2nd grade, they're in trouble.
Right. The statistic would be that I think it's like 74% of inmates in prisons are illiterate. And that lends to believe that, not necessarily that, your child is going to go to prison, but they're more likely to choose a path of crime, unfortunately, if they don't know how to read, because it becomes more difficult. Mm-hmm. And so the whole thing that I want to say is that it doesn't require money. It doesn't require an education. You just need to know the little bits of skills to talk about while you're reading with your kid, and you can set them up for a future that is, beneficial, and they can grow.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about a situation that my beautiful wife pointed out to me when I was asking her how we can motivate the people the parents in her classroom, she was an inner city teacher, to read with her kids every night. And she said, a lot of my parents can't read and they
Right.
can't English, but those parents can still get a lot of the benefits of reading books with their kids. Tell us a little bit about that.
The benefit, I would say, yeah. I mean, a lot of the books that start out have pictures, and so it would be very simple to just talk about what's happening in the pictures, present a story, talk about the way that the character is looking, what may be happening. And that is even beneficial in and of itself because you're speaking, you're using your imagination, you're bonding, you're having these discussions around a book and creating a beautiful moment. I taught in Denver public schools and in first grade, and so I can totally empathize with that. There were a lot of our parents that were doing the best that they possibly could, and reading every night was a big ask. And I get that. I think it's just promoting that. And I would also say schooling may have pain in their past. It may not have been a wonderful place for them to go. And so just softening that by saying this is hugely beneficial for your child. And if you're reading with your kid, and they are talking about reading and talking about what they're learning from school, they can even teach their parent to read, even through all of that, just by being vulnerable enough to say, hey, I actually can't do this, and you can help us both. Let's talk about this book, but just putting books on a pedestal again, and saying that they're really beneficial, I think.
Yeah. And, we're talking about the benefits that kids get from reading. I think the parents, the grandparents, the uncles, the aunts who read with their kids, they get a lot of benefits too. Oh
yeah, I totally agree. Books are so a part of our lives that that book, Dragons Love Tacos. Whenever we say super spicy in our house, we say it like when we read it. They're super spicy. It's like an inside joke between our family that starts, or when we say let's go, it's skit scat scoodle doot. From Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. I mean, it's a part of our life, and so we're bonded as a family with our relationship just over the books that we're reading right now. Yeah. So it is, everybody benefits from our relationship gets stronger, and that's what helps us to continue on to parent in the future.
Yeah. And I think, coming home, work was miserable. My boss is such a jerk, and I hate the way the traffic was bad. Sit down, read with your kids for 20 minutes. That stuff goes away.
Yeah.
Years.
It's an endorphin rush.
Yeah.
There's this whole, it's like, you sit, you skin to skin, sharing a beautiful moment. Everybody benefits.
Yeah. You're talking about the fun little inside jokes, around reading that your family has. There was a time many, many years ago, my kids were independent readers, at this time, but my beautiful wife came home with the prescription. And I decided I'm going to read the warning labels, all disclaimers. And I read them as if I was on stage doing a dramatic reading, and explosive diarrhea. My kids were rolling on the floor. My wife was horrified. She didn't want to take the medication. And we talked about it for years, and it was such a fun memory.
Yeah, and that's just that's a very normal thing that you would have to read, right? And then you make it fun, and it lives forever.
So what inspired you to become a reading specialist?
So like I said, I taught in Denver public schools, and I was pretty new. I think I was 3 years out of college. And I had a wonderful education from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So go Huskers. I have to say that, I'm obligated. But I loved my education there, and I got to school, and I think I didn't feel like I knew enough about reading. We had an amazing reading specialist at our school, in Denver Public Schools, and she just had this passion. And I loved watching her bring us new things that would help us out with our guided reading. But I still felt like I was, kind of missing something. And so I I was running and I felt like there was this, go back to school and this is where you'll make a big impact. And so I followed that path. My kids were really young at that age. So let's see, my daughter was like 18 months when I got into my master's program, and then I had my son later. And so I just wanted to be able, I just felt really called to it. Like I needed to learn more about reading. I also was not a great reader. My parents bought me the phonics game, which like gives me a PTSD to think about now. Even though it was a wonderful program, but, it really is just terrible when you don't know how to read. It makes you feel lesser than. It kind of makes you feel like you can't grasp everything. And so it was just a big combination of all of that. I wanted to be able to especially reach, harder to serve lower income areas and lift them up and because I believe that parents can close the achievement gap. So that's really where I wanted to hit hard at the source.
Yeah. One thing we've talked about with different teachers who've been on the show and reading specialists is that one of the frustrations, certainly my wife was frustrated by this, it was every 8 to 10 years, there's a new curriculum,
right.
And it's like, hey, this is brand new. We're going to do it. This is going to make a huge difference. Yeah. Everybody gets trained on it. Thousands and thousands of dollars are spent on the curriculum. And then there's a new superintendent or
right.
just another thing comes out and it's like, okay, we start all over again. There's no one perfect system, or maybe there is, to help kids learn how to read. What do you think? What's the best way that we can approach reading and teaching kids how to read?
I think encouraging parents. So the metaphor that I use is that if the school's doing the best that they can, but they have a leaky hose, then the parents are the faucet, then we have to shut off the achievement gap at the source, which would be the faucet. And I think a lot of times, yes, it gets totally busy. I would say, we have these computers in our hands. I get distracted. We all get distracted by everything else that is around, and we lose that books are our lifeblood of being able to, kind of close that gap. And so encouraging parents, and getting, and I know it's hard. It may even be a pipe dream by saying that, if we created these communities around reading within our schools, we would do so much with parents and saying, hey, here's a little strategy you can do. So you don't feel like you're, sitting down and you don't know what you're talking about with reading. Here's something that you can do, and that's going to do it. I think we forget when something's not working, we're like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. How do we fix this again? And we come up with a new curriculum. But reading is so simple, really. You start with sounds, you add shapes, and then you put those together and read them smoothly. You create more vocabulary words, and then you have comprehension. And if we simplified it and we said, hey, this is not as complicated as we've all made it, I think we would go a long way. And if we bring parents in that discussion, and encourage parents with the skills that they have, then we'd be able to make a bigger ground, I believe.
I really love that. And I love that all along the way, as you're talking about it, it's parents.
Yeah.
Parents. And so I think that's so important. And at the same time, that's the thing I think that worries me about the future, because one of the things that I noticed with my kids and their peers is, you could tell who is being read to and who isn't
right.
being read to, and who's getting attention from their parents. And so I wish there was a magic wand, or a magic pen.
Magic pen, yeah.
I could wave that would just kind of light up the parents. And also, I think you're on the right track when you're talking about schools really encouraging reading at home, because I see it in some places. I don't see it in enough places.
Right. Yeah, and I think so I was a part of a like a mothers group organization called they've changed their name now, they're Mom Co, but they used to be MOPS back when I was there. And it was these little tables of there was a large amount of women, but then you would simplify it to maybe 5 to 7. And you created this kind of community that you felt vulnerable enough to share. You would talk about things, and I always felt, and I felt like this when I was doing my capstone project, you have these tiny communities. You teach reading strategies within those communities with these parents. And yes, it does mean you have to come to the school maybe after you've worked 2 shifts. But if we say you have the skills, you can do this, it is not as complicated as it has been presented. You don't even have to read. You can just do this simple thing by talking about sounds, and you are creating a big jump for your kid. But those little communities, there's so much research around communities that is beneficial for everyone involved.
Yeah. I love that idea. I think that is, I think it's genius.
Yeah.
It really does. And I think one of the things, and it's certainly not the majority of teachers, but there's, I don't want to find the right word. In some areas, you find educators who are like, well, parents, you can't do this. I'm the expert.
Right.
Depend on me, and I'll answer all your questions. And I don't think that helps at all.
No, it's vulnerability. You have to be able to say, we're coming alongside together. Like, I have your child's best interest in mind, and you should trust me, but also I trust you to be able to do this. And I encourage you. Sometimes, like I said, there's hurts from somebody who went to school. I think I could have been one of those people that didn't like reading, that felt, stupid, all of those things. But it just takes a teacher saying, I'm sorry that happened, and let's come alongside together for the benefit of your kid. Because what parent doesn't want their kid to go to the stars,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's the next step for you? Are you going to become a full-time author? Are you going to travel around the country, encouraging parents to read with kids?
Goodness, I don't know. I would love all of that. Maybe I will go around encouraging people while also selling my books. I love writing these books. It's so fun to me. Who doesn't want to just love their job? And so I will continue writing the books. I have other ideas as authors do of different other stories I'd love to write, and some I have, but the kids in my neighborhood are like, when's the second book coming out? So I'm like, well, I guess I better get on that, for my kids' friends. And so I would love to write. I want to continue sharing reading strategies. I've moved it over to my blog a little away from Instagram a little bit. I did share strategies over there, but social media is a whole nother podcasting of itself. So I have chosen for myself and my mental health to move it over to writing on my blog, which I love writing, so it makes more sense. But yes, I do. I speak to that Mom Co, those groups. Every once in a while they reach out, and so I share reading strategies with some moms. I've gone from sitting in the crowd to being on stage, which is amazing. So a whole lot of that. I would love to encourage reading everywhere.
Wonderful. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about the Magic Pen and find out more about you.
So they can go to my site. It is wovenreading.com, WOVENREADING.com. So that's where I'm at. I'm also on Instagram, woven_reading, under my name, Jordan Hayes, as well.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of The Magic Pen. Our guest has been Jordan Hayes. Jordan, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids. Well, join us for the next exciting episode of the show. In the meantime, we'd love it and really appreciate it if you could write a 5-star review of Reading with Your Kids on whatever podcasting platform you find the show. We especially love reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. We'd also love it if you could connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, @readingwithyourkids on Instagram, and @JedleyMagic on Twitter. I want to thank the folks who joined us today and made this show so wonderful. First, we start by thanking our guests, Rachel, Renee, and Nikki Russell. Please be sure to check out Dork Diaries, Book 16, Tales from a Not So Bratty Sister. Also want to thank Jordan Hayes. Be sure to check out The Magic Pen. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Rayling Tang. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.